As we're moving into a world where AI technology is going to become more and more undeniable part of our daily lives, I felt it was time to revisit a game that exemplified some of these themes a decade earlier. Ubisoft's Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs is set in a version of Chicago that has been re-infrastructured with the Central Operating System, CTOS. This system takes control, bridges, traffic lights, cameras, much more. In Watch Dogs, you get to take control over a vigilante hacker, Aiden Pearce. He's not just living in the city of Chicago, he is hacking into it. As we play through Aiden Pearce's story, we learn about the people who cost him one of the most valuable things in his life. Because of this, we, the players, get to experience dramatic highs and lows of the concerns of privacy invasion, as well as seeing firsthand the uncomfortability that it is to spy on someone without their consent. Throughout this video, I will be talking about the story, gameplay, and we'll be revisiting its controversial release back in 2014.
Back at E3 2012, Ubisoft unveiled Watch Dogs with a trailer that felt revolutionary. The graphics were stunning, the premise was thrilling, and for many, it seemed like the next leap forward in open-world games. Ubisoft didn't just show off pretty visuals. They played into the growing fears about digital privacy with clever marketing stunts. They launched a website that scraped social media data, reminding people just how vulnerable their information was. It felt eerily relevant, especially in the wake of Edward Snowden's NSA revelations in 2013. Watch Dogs was no longer just a game, it was a reflection of our increasingly surveilled world. Ubisoft's timing couldn't have been better. Hacker culture was on the rise, and shows like Mr. Robot were diving into similar themes. Watch Dogs hit right at the intersection of pop culture and digital paranoia, and the gaming community was very excited for Ubisoft's new IP that was meant to be a GTA 5 killer. Yes, the GTA 5 that sold over 1 billion copies a few months back and completely changed the landscape of open world gaming experiences for single player and online co-op.
I will admit, I bought into the hype. Back in 2014, I pre-ordered this game at GameStop, and I remember at the time I couldn't afford games, so I traded like 3 or 4 different games just so I could play it on release. Not only that, I showed up for the midnight release at my local GameStop, and honestly it's probably one of my least favorite memories because I was 14 with my mom and all the other guys there were like 18-year-old gamers, and they kind of were picking on me and making fun of the fact that I was so young. I didn't care. I got my game, and it was prime time summer vacation as it came out on May 27th of 2014, so I played it until I passed out.
Hacking in Watch Dogs is simple, effective, but very unrealistic. Ubisoft gave players control over Chicago's infrastructure, creating a cinematic experience out of something that in real life is often phishing scams and exploiting human error. In the game, hacking is as easy as pressing a button, but it's incredibly immersive to your playing experience. You can control traffic lights, raise bridges, and even hack into security cameras to gain a tactical advantage, allowing you to plan the best stealth maneuvers using a variety of craftable tools. What starts as basic hacks soon escalates as you unlock more powerful abilities, jamming communications, triggering explosives, or disrupting enemy reinforcement. Ubisoft even adds a puzzle element to some of the more advanced hacks, forcing players to think on their feet. I really never felt any pressure and felt like these were fairly simple. Hacking could have easily been a gimmick, but it becomes essential to how you play, especially during stealth missions where you're luring enemies into traps, disabling alarms, or exploding devices for the perfect takedown. One of my favorite moments, personally, was facing off against Default, a rival hacker who made hacking feel personal and intense. It really just felt like an internet troll continuously teabagging you throughout an Iron 3 round of Valorant. Chicago and Watch Dogs might not have the scale of Los Santos and GTA 5, but it stands out for its interactivity. Every corner of the city feels alive, with opportunities to manipulate its systems in ways that are uniquely tied to hacking. It's more akin to other Ubisoft franchises like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, blending open world exploration with tightly directed missions. The gameplay shines in how it weaves hacking, stealth, and action together. There's a rhythm to shifting between these elements using the environment to your advantage. It's like a futuristic version of Assassin's Creed, where every action feels like it's a part of a larger puzzle. There is so much for you to do in terms of side quests and collectibles, and I'd say many of these are still very enjoyable. Throughout my Platinum run, I feel that I learned more about the lore of characters, organizations, and other antagonists. Though it's a shame that to get the full experience of the story, you have to do everything in the game. Stay tuned, as I will break this down more later. Stealth in Watch Dogs feels a little different from what we've seen in Ubisoft's other titles. Hacking adds a new layer to the typical formula, allowing you to manipulate your environment to avoid direct confrontation. You can use the cameras to scope out areas, set traps, and plan your approach with precision. While some missions allow you to brute force your way through, Watch Dogs rewards players who take a more tactical, stealthy approach. However, the stealth system isn't perfect. Eventually, you might find yourself relying on a silenced pistol to quietly eliminate enemies, which undermines some of the more complex systems at play. Despite this, the variety of approaches Watch Dogs offers makes its stealth stand out. I wish that the game didn't provide you with such a stacked arsenal of weapons that you can carry at all times. Without it, it would force you to really evaluate the kind of areas you're in to a deeper level. I just don't need to carry 3 different types of grenade launchers at all times. This is a point where I feel they tried to be a GTA 5. It works in GTA 5 because it's not a stealth game. It doesn't work in Watch Dogs because it is a stealth game. The reputation system in Watch Dogs is a subtle way to shape the world around you. Depending on whether you act as a vigilante or cause collateral damage, your reputation will shift, influencing how NPCs and even the media respond to you. Save civilians and people won't call the cops, cause too much chaos, and you'll find yourself on the receiving end of negative attention. While it's not a groundbreaking mechanic, the reputation system helps immerse you in the world, but at the end of the day, it's pointless. It's just a pat in the back for not shooting a random NPC. I had mentioned earlier that I was looking forward to a GTA 5 multiplayer experience at launch, and Watch Dogs was just nowhere close to the same level of an online multiplayer sandbox. Some of the multiplayer sounds interesting, but quite frankly, I have been putting it on the back burner during the platinum hunt, as it simply is not as enjoyable as the other side objectives. I will say there are still people who play the multiplayer, likely in order to complete the platinum trophy. Aiden Pearce is a hacker who at the very start of the game seems to be driven by selfish motives, but after a job goes wrong and his niece Lena is killed in a car crash, his quest for revenge consumes him. Aiden's story is one of grief and guilt, with his every action motivated by the tragedy that reshapes his life. Aiden's obsession with surveillance goes beyond his hacking. He's bugged his sister's house, convinced that only he can protect his family. His relationships deteriorate and his need for control intensifies. Despite his sister's pleas to move on, Aiden can't let go of his guilt, which leads him further down a path of vengeance. Throughout the game, Aiden's interactions with others are often transactional. He's not interested in forming meaningful connections. He's focused on what he can gain from people. Characters like Damien, his former partner in crime, serve as a mirror to Aiden, highlighting the moral complexity of his quest. Damien embraces his darker side, while Aiden struggles to justify his action as being for the greater good when they are really for his own greater good. Looking back, Aiden Pearce received mixed reactions from players. Some appreciated the moral ambiguity of his character, while others found him emotionally distant and hard to connect with. His stoic demeanor highlights his trauma, but also makes him feel robotic at times. Ubisoft aimed to create a complex anti-hero, but Aiden's lack of vulnerability often prevents players from fully empathizing with him. Once again, to summarize the story, Watch Dogs follows Aiden Pearce, a skilled hacker whose life takes a dark turn after a digital heist at the Merlot Hotel goes wrong. This sets off a chain of events that leads to the tragic death of his young niece, Lena. Driven by grief and guilt, Aiden embarks on a relentless quest for revenge. As he digs deeper, he discovers a vast conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of Chicago politics, business, and crime, revealing that this story is far more than just a personal vendetta. One of the most compelling aspects of Watch Dogs is how it explores the dual-edged nature of technology. The CTOS system, a citywide surveillance network, was designed with the promise of reducing crime in Chicago and increasing efficiency of its infrastructure. However, as Aiden navigates this digital landscape, we see how easily the system is corrupted, used to monitor and control Chicago citizens rather than protect them. Throughout characters like T-Bone, who help bring CTOS to life,
Prepping for my big meltdown, I guess. They've handed Rose a new task. They want to start work on a behavioral prediction system.
the game raises important questions about the ethics of surveillance, showing how technology meant for good can quickly spiral into something far more sinister. Aiden's access to CTOS allows him to pry into the most private aspects of others' lives, calling into question the moral ambiguities of surveillance. This is particularly evident inside missions like the privacy invasions, where players are forced to confront the discomfort of violating personal boundaries for seemingly no reason other than curiosity. The game's Orwellian overtones and post-Snowden undertones touch on contemporary anxieties about the increasing reach of government and corporate surveillance, making the narrative feel especially real. One of my favorite mechanics is the profiler in the game. Through its simple one-line bios of NPCs that Aiden scans, Watch Dogs adds a human dimension to its open world, reminding players that every digital footprint tells a story. Privacy and ethics of power are equally significant in Watch Dogs. The game raises critical questions about the limits of trust and control in a world dominated by powerful technological entities. Aiden, operating in the shadows and constantly surveilled, becomes a manifestation of these themes. He uses CTOS not to bring about justice, but to survive in a world that's watching his every move, highlighting how power, when left unchecked, can easily spiral into paranoia and control. While Watch Dogs tackles these profound societal questions, its narrative structure suffers from pacing issues that hinder its emotional impact. The opening moments of Lena's death feel rushed, leaving little room for players to connect with the tragedy in a meaningful way. Games like The Last of Us effectively use emotional moments to hook players, and Watch Dogs could have benefited from a similar approach. Moreover, the second act tends to drag as Aiden's journey becomes repetitive, though the narrative eventually finds its footing in later acts. Despite these flaws, the game strikes a balance between personal stakes and broader societal themes, though Aiden's personal mission of revenge sometimes overshadows the larger ethical questions at play. Characters like T-Bone and DeadSec attempt to push the narrative towards systematic critique, but Aiden remains focused on his individual goals, which causes some of the game's more intriguing themes to feel underdeveloped. During the marketing for Watch Dogs, the gameplay graphics look so good. Looking back at these E3 trailers, promise to be the next generation graphical experience, almost like when everyone used to ask, can your PC even run Crysis 3? However, when the game finally launched, many players were disappointed, particularly those on last-gen consoles like the Xbox 360, where frame rate issues and noticeable graphical downgrades detracted from the experience. Despite Ubisoft's best efforts to mitigate these issues with patches, the game failed to live up to the visual expectations set by its pre-release footage, especially when compared to the other open-world titles like GTA 5. That said, revisiting Watch Dogs in 2024 on the PlayStation 5 offers a more polished experience. The game holds up surprisingly well, with smoother performance and significantly fewer technical issues. While it may not have achieved the revolutionary visual standards it once promised, Watch Dogs remains immersive with its world rendered in a way that feels both alive and expansive. As of now, the game is available for free on PlayStation Plus, which makes it an even more attractive option for players who may have missed it the first time around. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, the modding community took it as a challenge to create Watch Dogs that looked like the initial trailers. Because of this, PC players can experience a more graphically intense game. Chicago, the setting of Watch Dogs, plays a crucial role in shaping the game's atmosphere. Ubisoft's recreation of the Windy City, though altered for licensing reasons, captures the essence of urban life. From the bustling downtown to the quieter outskirts like Pawnee, Watch Dogs offers players a variety of areas to explore, each with its own unique flavor. While certain iconic landmarks such as the Bean are missing, the game makes up for it with details like the L train, which serves both as a functional mode of transport and a reminder of the game's emphasis on control over the city's infrastructure. However, while Chicago feels dynamic, there are missed opportunities to integrate some areas more deeply into the main narrative. Some of the more iconic architecture of Chicago's skylines could have served for incredible mission settings. Imagine making your way up Sears Tower or the Marina Towers to then have to parachute off the top and glide through the skyline. The release of Watch Dogs in 2014 tapped into the cultural zeitgeist surrounding hacking, privacy, and surveillance. Its portrayal of a hacker in control of entire city's digital infrastructure spoke directly to growing concerns about the ethical implications of technological achievements. By placing players in the role of a hacker navigating a world of corporate greed, government oversight, and personal vendettas, Watch Dogs positioned itself as a game that was as much about technology's promise as it was about its peril. While Watch Dogs may not have been the genre-defining game Ubisoft marketed it to be, it has since earned a more positive reputation. With time, players have come to appreciate it for what it was, rather than hating it for not being GTA in Chicago. Its sequels, Watch Dogs 2 and Watch Dogs Legion, build upon the original's foundation by embracing different tones and mechanics, and its influence on the open world genre is undeniable. Watch Dogs laid the groundwork for a new era of games that explore the intersection of technology, ethics, and power. While not perfect, Watch Dogs remains an important milestone in the evolution of open world games, offering a unique experience that few titles have since replicated. In the end, Watch Dogs is a game that dared to explore complex and timely themes about technology, power, and privacy. While it may not have delivered on all of its promises, it still stands as a memorable and thought-provoking entry in the open world genre. Its hacking mechanics, Chicago setting, and exploration of surveillance culture make it a game worthy of revisiting, especially in today's tech-driven world. So, what are your thoughts on Watch Dogs? Did it meet your expectations when you played it, or did it fall short? Share your experience in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this.